Well, this afternoon, De Ruyter also conceding he couldn't achieve all his objectives as CEO. Former Eskom General Executive Manager Vally Padayachee joins us now for more. Mr. Padayachee, good evening to you. Thanks for your time. So we have the Eskom CEO, of course, saying that the situation had just become untenable and he had to go. At the same time, today, the Public Enterprises Minister saying that he believes Gwede Mantashe's comments about Eskom basically trying to agitate for an overthrow of the government, that those comments were unfair. What do you read of what we have watched play out? And is it really the events of the last 2 weeks that have pushed us to this moment?
Good evening, Kathy, and a very good evening to your viewers as well, and I'm glad to be back. I don't want to talk about the politics of this, in other words, the Mantashe comments and so on. I'll focus on the other aspects. You mentioned 2 weeks. I don't think it was 2 weeks. I think it was long coming to the situation. It's actually a couple of years. And it also proves a point that I've been making of recent, that Mr. De Ruyter, and I'm again repeating, I don't have anything personal against him, was not the right person for the job. In other words, where Eskom was currently, or is currently, we're actually on a death spiral going down. He was not the right person for the job. And of course, by his own admission this afternoon, or this morning as well, he indicated that the position was untenable. And that generally happens when a leader gets into a position that he finds it difficult to cope with, actually ends up being untenable. But I must also point out that not all the conditions was due to his fault. Obviously, it came before 2019, but he had an opportunity from 2019 to now as CEO to make a change, a transformation. That hasn't happened. Actually, Eskom has got worse. And I would say it wasn't 2 weeks. It was long before 2 weeks, Kathy.
If we are to have a true assessment of André de Ruyter's time as CEO, we have to then evaluate part of what is being said now that he's leaving. So there is a sentiment that suggests that he was not well supported during his role. Your own reflections on that, based on what has happened institutionally at Eskom?
I would tend to agree with that in certain aspects for various reasons. I don't have the detail, but I would tend to agree with that. I would also make the point that his hands were tied as well, because government, I believe, had, for want of a better word, interfered in the affairs of Eskom, and I believe that the board should have protected the CEO in that respect. But having said that, Kathy, you cannot exonerate De Ruyter completely. When he took on the job in 2019, let's talk about the facts and keep away from the emotions. Right? Eskom was performing reasonably well. I understand that he inherited a EAF factor of 72%, and under his watch we're down to 55%. Ironically, if we were sitting at 72% now, we would not be load shedding. The performance of Eskom has dropped significantly, where we are sitting on a knife edge, we're on a death spiral. And I think most important, Kathy, which people don't talk about, and I can talk about it having come from Eskom on operational aspects, is that I believe that under André de Ruyter's watch, the soul of Eskom has been destroyed. And let me explain that. You know, besides all the technical competencies you need to have, and the financial competencies as a CEO, you need to take the people with you. And if you do not take the people with you, especially in a complex business like Eskom Generation, then you will kill that business. And we see evidence of that now. So let me respond in another way. The new CEO that comes on board, and hopefully government makes a proper choice in terms of the 12th CEO, will have to actually lead a psychological turnaround in addition to the financial and technical turnaround. And what do I mean by a psychological turnaround? If you look at all the top-notch CEOs around the world that turn around companies in distress, what they had as a common factor, they restored their people's confidence in themselves and in one another, right? Which is a necessary antecedent to restoring investor or public confidence. They inspired and empowered their organizations, which they turned around, to take new actions that could renew profitability and plant performance. Now, I would argue, and I'm very closely involved with Eskom, and I'm saying the soul of Eskom has been destroyed. People, top-notch people there are despondent, the morale is down, and even under those conditions, they're performing well. So the new CEO that the board appoints has to be very, very prudent and careful that they do not only go for a guy or heir, and be very careful, that's technically and financially and strategically competent. The person must be a person that's able to take the people around and build the confidence of the people and build the trust amongst themselves. I think that's lost completely. There's a new terminology called organizational pathologies. Eskom is now reflective of an organization that reflects a number of pathologies, where there's distrust, people leaving, people not wanting to give off information, etc. So the new CEO has to be a person, I would argue, to be more than just technically and financially and strategically prudent. He has to be a person that's able to do a complete psychological turnaround of Eskom. Otherwise, Eskom, you could have all the technical and financial competencies in a person, but Eskom will continue on the downward death spiral. So there's a new terminology now. New but old practice, psychological turnaround, Kathy.
All right. Vally Padayachee, we'll leave it there for tonight.